Is buying property in Mexico safe for Americans? Yes. But this is exactly where some people make very expensive mistakes. Because when most Americans ask if buying in Mexico is safe, they usually think about crime. But the real danger is often something else. The process. That's where people can lose money, sign the wrong documents, or trust the wrong person without realizing it until it's too late. So in this video, I'll explain what actually makes a property purchase in Mexico safer, what makes it risky, and what Americans need to do to protect themselves before they buy. Now first, let's clear up the biggest misunderstanding. Buying property in Mexico is not automatically unsafe. Thousands of foreigners buy property there. Some of them buy safely, with a clean process, good documentation, and no major problems. But others run into trouble because they assume the process works, just like it does in the United States. And that assumption can be expensive. Mexico has its own legal structure, its own closing process, its own rules about title, bank trusts, ejido land, fees, and due diligence. So the real question is not, is Mexico safe or unsafe? The real question is, are you buying the right property, with the right people, using the right process? So what actually makes buying property in Mexico risky for Americans? Usually, it comes down to a few very specific mistakes. Number 1, buying without proper due diligence. Number 2, not understanding what type of land or ownership structure you're really dealing with. Number 3, trusting verbal promises instead of verified documents. And number 4, moving too fast because the property feels exciting, urgent, or too good to miss. That's where people get hurt. Not because every transaction is bad, but because one mistake in the process can turn into a very expensive problem later. A property can look perfect on the surface, but if the paperwork is unclear, if ownership history is messy, if the land situation is wrong, or if important details were never verified, then feeling good about the deal doesn't actually make it safe. Now here's the more important part. What actually makes buying property in Mexico safer? A clean process, verified ownership, proper document review, independent due diligence, and making sure you understand exactly what you are buying before you commit money. That means slowing down, asking more questions, checking more than feels necessary, and not confusing confidence from a seller, agent, or developer with real protection. Because safe buying is usually not about one magic person you trust. It's about having a process that protects you, even if someone misses something, forgets something, or tells you only part of the story. That's how Americans should think about safety in Mexico. Not emotionally, but structurally. And if you want to understand how Americans actually buy property in Mexico step by step, watch that video too. Because once you see the process clearly, the whole situation starts to make a lot more sense. So, is buying property in Mexico safe for Americans? Yes, it can be very safe, but only when you stop thinking like a tourist and start thinking like a careful buyer. The people who usually feel safest after buying are not the people who rushed. They're the people who asked hard questions, reviewed the details, understood the structure, and treated the purchase like a serious legal and financial decision. That's the difference. Mexico doesn't have to be the problem. A bad buying process is the problem. And the good news is that part is something you can control. And if you're serious about buying property in Mexico, watch this video next. Because one of the next things that surprises Americans is not just safety. It's the real cost of the purchase. And if you don't understand that part clearly, you can make a safe deal and still get hit financially. Watch that video next. It'll help you understand what Americans really pay before they buy property in Mexico.